Thank you very much, Professor Meyer. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for having me here, and thank you for this wonderful event. My presentation will be about, as was told, the online image of the Romanian Gendarmerie during January 2012 protests. So I will talk about a little about the changes in internet consumption in Romania in the last years, about online and what is it, online reputation management, what is the Romanian Gendarmerie image on social media, and I will try to conclude at the end of my presentation. So, as you may see here, in Romania there were some changes in the last 10 years. Almost 45% of the population do have access to internet. In the last 10 years were very important changes. In 2000, for example, there were only 1 million users of internet, and now we are talking about 10 million users of internet in Romania. So it was an explosion of internet access, and especially on social networks. Facebook especially achieved around 6 million users. So my presentation deals with identity, image and reputation. It's about public relation, about the organization identity, image of a company, and about how these companies do manage their reputation. As you may see, organization identity means this statement referring to who and what is the company. Image of a company represents what the internal and external agencies perceive as a built identity induced and produced by a company or organization, a public institution. Image being composed by a sum of prejudices, stereotypes and perception. And the reputation of a company or of an organization is based on the values that the target audience associates with the organization. I mean, its fame, and that build or destroy the audience's trust in it. In fact, public relations functions are communication management, reputation management, and relationship management. Communication management means daily information, transparency, and activism regarding the organization services in order to win the audience's confidence or trust that the organization is serving the public interest. Reputation management means permanent monitoring in order to observe or to react to any potential negative content about the brand. And relationship management means ensuring the prompt and permanent communication with target audiences about the company's services or organization's offer, thus creating this support community for the brand. Of course, the specialists do know all these things, but the most important thing is if the specialists in communication from the Romanian Gendarmerie do know these things and how they react to what happened during this January 2012 protests. Online reputation management is about how to create an online community to support the organization and its projects. Online reputation management implies building the controlled communication channels and raising awareness on them as sources of information of the company's identity, both for the media as well as for the external and internal audience. In 2010, so the opposition and unions tried to mobilize citizens to protest against the government, but it was not until January 2012 that hundreds of Romanians went out on the streets throughout the country when Raed Arafat, the Ministry of Health State Secretary, resigned because he disagreed with the new health law proposal. People were called up in the streets and joined the protests due to this manifesto initiated on social media, especially on Facebook. More, the cause of that ignited the street manifestations was the citizens' solidarity with the founder of the Mobile Emergency Service for Resuscitation and Extrication. In Romania is SMORT, medical doctor Raed Arafat, who criticized, as I told, the idea of liberalizing the emergency medical system. So the police and the Gendarmerie were called to ensure the order in the University Square in Bucharest. The street protests escalated in violent conflicts between the citizens and the gendarmes. So the protesters' leaders, the protesters group organized on Facebook, and the free media and human rights defense associations reacted regarding the manner in which the gendarmes intervened to ensure the public calm and order. So what happened in traditional media? We had two different visions. It depends on the traditional media, on the different televisions. On the one hand, the anti-government media exaggerated the number of protesters and propagated almost exclusively the aggressiveness messages of the demonstrators. It placed the accent on the violent aspects and blamed the gendarmes who intervened against the journalists and the protesters. So I will show you these images for maybe 1-2 minutes. On the other hand, the journalists in favor of the political power try to ridiculate the protesters, minimizing both their number as well as their quality, reporting that the demonstrators were mostly stadium hooligans, unemployed, who do not know how to do anything, and of course, and this was funniest, sunflower seeds eaters. Sorry, I want to show you this also.
Mai multe momente care inițial au părut dramatice, revăzute, acum stârnesc cel puțin zâmbete, dacă nu hohote de râs. Urmăriți sumarul celor 5 zile de proteste.
Strigătul de luptă lansat de comandantul de brigadă într-un moment în care protestele din capitală luaseră amploare ar fi trebuit să-i mobilizeze pe luptători. Cei din urmă au acționat, dar spectatorii nu s-au putut abține să nu zâmbească. Un altul vrea să dea cu gaze lacrimogene în grupul de huligani de la universitate, dar își pierde echilibrul. Priviți acest detașament de jandarmi care se îndreaptă în formație de luptă pe bulevardul Brătianu către un grup de huligani. Au înaintat până când au realizat că între ei și protestatari este un obstacol neașteptat. Pasajul rutier. Concluzia o trag tot ei.
Actually, they are saying to one another that they are fools because they took that path.
Iar alții descoperă cultura.
Noi suntem de la siècles, suntem stai de cultura asta să fim. Stai de cultură? Stai de cultură și băgați în timp.
They actually said that they had to take the cultural site because the policeman asked them, where are you from? They said, we are from a cultural site, and they said, take the cultural site and put him and take him away, put him in jail.
Manifestațiile sunt o adevărată sursă de venit. Domnul ne explică de ce se potrivesc semințele cu protestele.
De ce v-ați dat semințe? Ca să nu înghețăm năprig. Da, ca să ne dă cald.
He explained why the sunflower seeds are very related to the protests. And he said that he wants another revolution in Romania. And this guy said in the end, we had enough show for you, aren't we? So, how did the Romanian Gendarmerie manage the online reputation of institution during protests in January 2012? So, the way in which the Romanian police and gendarmerie reacted during the street protests in Bucharest and in the country was intensely debated, as I told you, especially on social networks like Facebook. I was wondering what was the online image of Romanian gendarmerie during this protest. For example, the American movies might turn RoboCop into a savior hero, but in Romania, maybe you know, maybe you do not know that the film, the most successful film in terms of box office after 89 Revolution is called Garcha, having this main character, hilarious, ridiculous and corrupt policeman. So in order to identify and collect the stereotypes protests online about gendarmes during the street revolts, I have applied the content analysis on Facebook of the free media associations and of protest leaders. Whenever the post reproduced facts without the author's intervention, its attitude was categorized as neutral. If the post praised the intervention of gendarmerie for resetting the order, in Max Weber's understanding, where the state has the legitimate monopoly upon violence and it is legitimate to ensure order, the attitude was categorized as positive. And if the author of a post about Romanian gendarmerie criticized the gendarmes for how they intervened, the order forced were accused of abuses against the citizens, and the Romanian state was perceived as a police state, the attitude was classified as negative. So the samples, in order to establish the perception of the audiences regarding the Romanian gendarmerie intervention, I have applied, as I told, the content analysis method on Facebook posts of some leaders of the protesters, on Riot Arafat and Smart Facebook support groups, and on Active Watch Facebook account. This is an Romanian NGO concerned with defending the rights of journalists and the freedom of expression. What the Romanian Gendarmerie has done on the internet during this protest was out of a total of 158 press releases on this official website, only 4 of them had references to the anti-governmental protest. Only 4. The other were about some other issues from a national importance. Topics in these 4 press releases were distractions caused by the protesters, the infractions perpetrated by the protesters, and the attitude was favorable, of course, to the gendarmerie, and the protesters were described as persons disturbing public order. And this is it. This is all they have done on the internet. On the other hand, there is an official Facebook page of Romanian Gendarmerie, but you will not find anything about these protests. But there is another one, the General Gendarmes Direction of Bucharest Facebook page, which now has around 1,000 fans. And in January 2012, out of a total of 25 posts, it's very interesting that half of the posts, in half of the post, attitude is not favorable to the gendarmerie, and in the other half, it is we will find a positive attitude, because they only posted the links to television websites. As you may see, 11 of these posts were with negative attitude toward gendarmerie's intervention. On the other hand, on Safe Smart Facebook page, you will find a total of 77 posts. In 63 posts, the attitude on Smart, on Dr. Raed Arafat and on the protesters was positive. And in 11 posts, we will find a negative attitude against the health law project, against President Pasescu and the authorities who tried to repress the protesters. In another page, in this one, who belongs to the leader of the protesters, to one of the leaders of the protesters, University Square, out of a total of 37 posts, the attitude was positive in 27 of them, when topics concerned the University Square protests, the protests in Hungary, and the Occupy movement. The attitude was negative in 7 posts that were opposing the agitators, the violent protesters groups, and the abusive behavior of the gendarmes. In Active Watch Facebook page, you will find 29 posts during January 2012. The attitude was positive in 5 posts, one single one about the gendarmes' intervention, 2 were positive about the ecologist protests, and 2 about the dismissal of the foreign affairs minister who offended during this protest the protesters. The attitude was negative in 21 posts, 11 were about the gendarmes' intervention, aggressions, and abuses. 7 were about the lack of equidistance in the reports of the journalists present at the protests. 2 negative about the protesters that aggressed journalists, and 1 about this discrimination of the Roma ethnics. So here are some preliminary conclusions. The ones who actually generated content in the online, especially on social media, were the protesters' representatives, the members of the community that were solidary with Dr. Arafat, and the human rights and the freedom of expression associations. Romanian Gendarmerie preferred not to communicate on social networks, and the official website of the institution displayed only 4 press releases about the protests. The gendarmerie leaders had a few reactions in TV shows or in print press interviews. So the online reputation and image of the gendarmerie was built by the actors who have expressed in the public space, in online public space. The online audience perception was mostly non-favorable to the manner in which the Romanian Gendarmerie handled the street protests and ensured the public order. Thank you very much for your kind attention.